that's how we'll fold a long string of single-stranded DNA into two-dimensional shape. I'll show a small video on this to explain it a little better. So this is a long DNA genomic virus genomic DNA, 1,000 to 2,000 kilobase pair, and these are small staple strands. And if you follow one staple strand like this orange one actually is hybridizing to 3 different parts of DNA and thus bringing them together. And to have a two-dimensional shape out of this 1,000 or 2,000 base long DNA, we need like hundreds or 200s these staple strands. And once this idea came out of Paul Rothman's mind, and this DNA origami actually created nanoscale shapes and patterns of like fascinating characters. Like here you can see these all structures are made of DNA, nothing else. Like this is a square, this is a rectangle, this is a star, and this is smiley's face. And this is really, really popular in the field of DNA origami. And these are 2 different type of DNA triangles. And these are all tame images you can see. But one thing is that these structures are 2-dimensional. So initially when it was introduced, the idea was introduced, these all are like 2-dimensional structure. So it has certain kind of flexibility. It is not rigid. And so if we want to make a complex, rigid and 3-dimensional structure, we need to do something else. What we need to do, we have to just fold the DNA double helices into, pack the DNA double helices into 3 dimension. And that's called 3-dimensional DNA origami. But from here you can imagine that it's not easy task to fold 1,000 beads in a proper way to have a calculated design. You cannot just sit with pen and paper and do it. There comes the help of computational tools. So also several groups in MIT and Harvard, they came forward and they designed packages where you can design this DNA nanostructure, and these packages will tell you where to fold, how to minimize the strain in the system. Because DNA is really negatively charged molecule, right? There is a huge electrostatic repulsion. So folding is not also easy. So you can fold in a particular position after a certain number of bases. So those all are being calculated by these packages, and ultimately these packages will also give you what is the sequence you should use to get, let's say, this kind of structure. So these, with the help of these computational tools, this area really got a boom in the design of or synthesizing DNA nanostructures, and some fascinating structures came up. And trust me, these are just the tip of the iceberg, what DNA nanotechnology can do in terms of structure. So this is a DNA box, a nano box, which can open and close. And this is a nano flask. This is again a box. And this is a very simple structure. This is called tetrahedron, for which it doesn't really need DNA origami, but it has also versatile applications. And this is very recent study, and this is a gigadalton DNA nanostructure. And this is a combination of 2 DNA nanostructure. This gray one is one, and on that gray one is sitting a blue one, and this blue one can rotate. And if, as I'm saying, that's particularly these 3 structures, these structures, what I said, they are responding in some way or the other, right? Like this one is rotating, this one can open, and you can put something and you can close it. Similarly, this one can also open and close. So we call this kind of structure as dynamic or reconfigurable DNA nanostructures. And this kind of structures has really large application, especially in drug delivery or building a plasmonic nanostructures. So now I'll go a little bit in detail into few of these applications. Oh, before going that, this is another slide I wanted to share with you what DNA nanostructures can do in different areas in terms of application. We can make responsive containers, as I already discussed a little bit. Then we can make nano devices, like this is a hinge which can again close and open, and this is also this is a handle which can rotate around this axle, and we can have some some kind of signal actuation, or another like really seductive prospect of DNA nanotechnology of using this as a targeted drug delivery agent or for bioimaging. So some of the examples I will discuss now. And so the first example I wanted to share with you is the DNA-based self-assembly of chiral plasmonic nanostructure. So we know that metal nanoparticles, when they are really small, and then if they are smaller than the wavelength of light, and then they show really unique optical behavior. And if we have a means to arrange them in a particular way so that they have controlled optical response, then we can use their plasmonic surface plasmon resonance to design some kind of device. But arranging them in a particular way and with a very high precision, say nanometer length scale, is not easy. Especially lithographic technique do not have such kind of nanometer precision. We can use some bottom-up approach and self-assembly guided by DNA. We can use this approach to position these nanometer nanoparticles in a precise way on a nanometer length scale and have a really controlled and expected optical signal. So what this in this paper the research group has done, they have taken this bundle of DNA double helix. There are 24 bundle of DNA double helix, and they club them together using DNA origami technique. So this is a bunch of DNA double helix, and this each helix has an extension, small extension, which I have not shown here, but probably you can see some here, red and green. And so each extension can hold one small gold nanoparticle. So these nanoparticles are really small, like 10 nanometer. And you can place these nanoparticles in a helical arrangement and a nanometer precision. So in this study, they have used like 4 to 6 nanometer. The spacing between two nanoparticles are 4 to 6 nanometer. That precise you can go down in terms of resolution. And DNA nanotechnology gives you that advantage. So you can arrange them in a left-handed helix, or you can arrange them in a right-handed helix, and you can also get desired optical response. Like this CD is one of the means to show the or see the optical response coming out of these left-handed or right-handed helices. And CD means where the left and right circularly polarized light are absorbed in a different way. And you can see here also how you can tune the optical response by changing the distance between two nanoparticles. So here the distance between two nanoparticles, I think 6 nanometer, and here the distance, sorry, this is a 16 nanometer probably, and this is around 6 nanometer, the inter particle distance. So you can see the peaks really can be tunable, just changing the distance between two metal nanoparticles. That's just a simple surface plasmonic response, right? But DNA origami gives you the advantage of placing them at such with such precision. And this is just the same study where this is a left-handed nanohelices and this is right-handed nanohelix, and this is control where there is no helicity in the arrangement of the nanoparticles. And if you can place these nanoparticles in between two polarizer, in between polarizer and analyzer, and you send a linearly polarized light and rotate the analyzer, you will see that effect of optical rotatory dispersion. So this is polarization resolved transmission image. So in a way, so in short, that DNA origami structure, you can use it as a molecular pegboard where you can place molecules with nanometer resolution. So we can use the similar kind of things for sensing device. Okay, this is giving plasmonic response, very good. You can the plasmonic response you can use for what is this optical signal you are getting. You want to use for something, so you can design a sensing device using again the arrangement of this metal nanoparticles. So here two gold nanorods are again placed on a bundle of DNA origami structure, and they also has these two upper and lower bundles are connected by a biorecognition unit. And if something binds to the biorecognition unit, or if the biorecognition unit recognizes something, it sends some signal to this reconfigurable DNA origami, which then transduces that and rotates the structures, either in left-handed or right-handed, and correspondingly will get an optical signal. So basically what we can do, we can design a sensing device, and sensing device can sense anything. It can sense any analyte, or even it can sense a small RNA, which is a marker of disease. And you just amplify that signal using plasmonic nanomaterials and use it for diagnostic purpose. And this is another really exciting example where 3 nanorods are being placed on again 3 different origami arms, and you can change the angle between these gold nanorods to have observable and or also control optical response. And so the question is it always we put a nanorod or nanoparticle like metal? No, we can use any, you can place anything. We can place a biomolecule also on the top of a DNA nanostructure. Like here, 2 enzymes are placed in close proximity, and one can study enzyme cascading. And so far is like placing the molecules on a DNA nanostructure. Then obvious question is, can we put something in the nanostructure, inside the nanostructure? Can we use it as a kind of container? Yes, you can do it. So one can design this tetrahedron or octahedron or icosahedron and put nanoparticles inside it, or protein or drug molecule. When I say drug molecules, that means medicine basically, which can treat some kind of disease. So we can put one, we can put multiple nanoparticles, or whatever you want to put, you can put inside this is hollow structures. And trust me, building this nanostructure is not biology. I'll say it's simple physics, where you are playing with electrostatic interactions. You are modulating the electrostatic interaction and kinetics between these small DNA overhangs. And yeah, so now is okay, I place the nanoparticles inside it, or I can put a drug molecule inside these hollow structures, but what is the purpose, or what is the use? So I'll give you some example, like 1 or 2 examples here. And one example is DNA nanostructure as drug delivery vehicle. So using these DNA nanostructures as a drug delivery vehicle, this is, as I already mentioned, this is really seducing aspect of DNA nanotechnology. We all want to treat cancer. We all want to treat, find a cure for something. So DNA nanostructure really gives you that advantage, because it's a naturally occurring material. You want to use, we all want to use, who are working in this field, these structures as a drug delivery agent, or for targeted drug delivery, or theranostics, these kind of applications. This is really one very interesting studies of such a drug delivery vehicle, which is made out of DNA. So this is a closed DNA nano cage. That is, it can have something inside like drug. This pink one is drug molecule. Let's assume they are drug molecule. But this cage will open only when you will provide it a key. So then the thing is, the key and the lock has to match, right? And when the key and the lock will match, then only this cage will open, and then the drug will be released. And this cage is made of DNA. Nothing else is inside this cage. Okay, and so this cage acts on the principle of AND gate. So this is a logic gate. So here it is described really simple, in a simple way. This is the nano cage. It has two locks, this red part and this green part, these two locks, and it needs two keys. And this is the cell. Let's say this is the cell. We put this cage inside the cell by some means, which I'm not getting into the detail. So if this cell doesn't have the key, then it will not open. This is AND gate, right? You need to have both inputs. If you provide one input, like providing it one key, then also it will not open. And either of the key, whether you are providing blue key or red key, it will not open. But when you provide both the keys, then only it will open and release that drug. And these keys, what can be those keys? These keys can be any kind of electrolyte or metal particles or any small DNA or small RNA, which are marker for disease. So those, if the cell is infected and the cell has certain kind of RNA, let's say certain kind of small RNA, and then those RNA will act as key and open the lock, and the drug will be released. But if the cell is not infected, so that there is no key, or then the cage will not open and will not release the drug. So this is very much targeted drug delivery. So there's a huge prospect of using these DNA nanostructure for drug delivery. And another example, this is very few first example of using DNA nanostructure for cancer treatment. So this is a mice. This mice has a tumor here, and this trigonal DNA nanostructure was used. And this nanostructure is loaded with this doxorubicin. This is anti-cancer drug, and it was injected. And this assembly was injected into the mice. And you can monitor where this drug has gone, because this drug is fluorescent also. So you can monitor some kind of by microscopy, and then where this drug is really going. And you can see one can see that this nanostructure accumulates around this tumor, and after some time this nanostructure gets partially digested and it releases the drugs in a pH controlled way. So this was really encouraging and really motivating in the field of DNA nanostructure, and especially who wants to, like people like us who wants to do research on designing nanostructures which can be used for diagnostics or targeted drug delivery. So these are some examples I wanted to share with you. Like there's a wide range of application of DNA nanostructures, like drug delivery and like plasmonic devices. But don't we also want to have fun in life? Do you want to also always design something to have application? No, sometimes we just want to have fun, or like we want to mimic some biomolecules. I want to, let's say, I want to design something out of DNA nanostructure which can mimic a motor protein. So what is a motor protein? So motor protein, this is a video from YouTube again. So like kinesin and dynein, this motor protein transports the something like cargo from one place to another, and they can walk around a microtubule. So you can see 2 feet are crossing each other, and this motor protein is walking. So can we design something like this out of DNA? Absolutely, we can design something like this using DNA, and we call it DNA nanowalker. So this is a very early examples of DNA nanowalker. So these red and black, this part are the feet, and this is the stem or body part of the walker, and this is the track on which the DNA walker can walk from. You can see from green to blue, it can walk. So you can direct this kind of motion in a nanostructure made out of DNA. And one of the project I was involved in was building a DNA nanostructure which uses RNA polymers and uses hydrolysis of NTP as the energy source. And again, this Walker, the head of this Walker, or you can say the engine of the Walker is made out of DNA, 2 DNA rings, which are interlocked. We call it catenin, and this is the RNA polymer. So I'm not going into the details of how does it work or how it works biologically, functioning biologically, but we can design some Walker by attaching this one to some leg, and the energy comes from here and translates into the leg, and this Walker can walk on it again in the DNA track from one step to another step, and you can monitor that walking by using time-resolved AFM. So far good. Okay, so now the question is the field is always like this rosy, so everything is working great and so exciting? No, it's not. Okay, before going into that challenges, I just want to mention one point. These DNA workers, what so far scientists could design, are much slower than biological motor proteins. So biological motor proteins, the speed is 1 micron per second, but so far the DNA nano worker designed, they are much slower. You can see 1 micron per minute. So there is lots of scope to improve, and there are several groups who are really dedicated in designing some improved DNA nanoworkers. So now coming to the challenges, as I was saying, that this field is not always rosy. There are challenges, right? And challenges leads us to growth. So let's see first the challenges are, so the cost of DNA synthesis and sequence design. So if we calculate in Indian rupees, so if you want to build a DNA origami and with a very low concentration, it will cost me like 50 to 60K. So affordability is of course a concern. So people are still working on it, and that the synthesis of DNA strands become much cheaper, and but we are far from there. And also, if we want to go from nano to angstrom, that is, we want to build a gigadalton DNA nanostructure. Not only we have the concern of affordability, that is the price, but also we have concern that we have to build really long scaffold. That is, mega base pair scaffold is required, and that is again difficult to synthesize. Not only cost is high, but also it's difficult to synthesize, and it's also mechanically fragile and defect in the structure. So remember, we are dealing with nanostructures, so the defect is also in the nanometer scale. So there is really lack of quantitative tools which can really analyze this defect and tell us, okay, we need to improve in this area. So this is this is also lagging behind this research in analyzing the defects. And honestly, we really do not understand completely the kinetics and thermodynamics aspect of this assembly, how we can improve the thermodynamic or the efficiency, in short. And there are more challenges like integrating heteroatoms for functionality. Of course, you can use DNA for functionality, but if we want to have really diverse function, we have to integrate hetero elements. These hetero elements can be nanoparticles, can be proteins, can be enzymes, but there are some examples of, as I discussed already, there are some examples of using proteins, enzymes, also nanoparticles. But if we want to use quantum dots, then we have really trouble, because it's the stability in attaching them, the quantum dots, and also the incompatibility in aqueous solution. And again, if we want to use multiple proteins, then we have efficient method. We need to have an efficient method for purification, etc. And again, enzyme, if you want to use some enzyme, then enzyme needs to be active also. after attaching it or after purification. So these are the some challenges. And also, as I already mentioned, these DNA-based devices are much slower than their natural counterpart. And we can use some strategies like what I use, using NTP hydrolysis, or one can use ATP hydrolysis or photon absorption, which our nature uses all the time to create fast machine. We can explore some kind of those, and people are trying to use like photon absorption and or ATP hydrolysis, but that is also an really active area of research. And diagnostics and therapeutics, there are several challenges. Okay, targeted drug delivery, very fascinating, but there are challenges. There are degradability. So then nanostructures, we don't want it to degrade as soon as it enters the cell. So that is a problem also. Potential immunogenicity, whether our cells recognizes those structure as a threat and starts working against it. We don't want that. So that is also another field which needs to be addressed. So there are so these challenges tells you that this field is still in the developmental phases. So it's just 40 years, like 1980s to 2020 is 14 years. We have more technological advancement at disposal. We can use this technological advancement and like create some really fascinating structure with diverse functionality. But these challenges tells us this, it's still in the development phase and we are yet to really reach the zenith. And there comes the famous I think sentence, challenges turn into opportunities. So wherever there is a challenge, you can find opportunity and make it work for you. So that's what we are doing, trying to do in my lab in ICT, where I use a DNA nanostructure to design some device for, again, diagnostics or treatment. And not only, not only DNA nanostructure, I'm also interested in some complex DNA, higher order DNA structures and their role in diseases. And to study these structures, I use lots of spectroscopic technique, single molecule spectroscopic and microscopic technique. And not only that, alongside I use some molecular modeling like docking or MD simulation to complement the experimental findings. And with this, I want to thank you all for your attention. And also, I apologize for the technical glitches we faced today, and I'll be open for questions. So I stopped sharing.
Thank you, madam. Debojyoti, very well.
Thank you, Dr. Pal. There is only one question from our end.
Okay.
From where did Siemens get the idea of DNA nanotechnology?
Yeah, I tried to address them. That I really don't know from where did he get the idea of DNA nanotechnology. It's just observing the. I think your mic is giving too much echo. It's just observing the naturally occurring DNA structures like four-way junction or three-way junction. Remember the initial structure, what has been used in the field of DNA technology, like the four-way or three-way junctions, they are all naturally occurring junction. They are not designed artificially. So that gave some kind of cue for Netziman is always to look for cues from nature, I guess.
Thank you.
So any other question?
Dr. Suman Pal for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Debojyoti.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello.
audible. Yes, you are audible.
Okay. This is Dr. Suman Pal on behalf of organizing committee. Thank you, Dr. Pal, for your informative and delightful deliberation on DNA nanotechnology, challenges and scopes.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Already you have addressed one question. In the last part, one question arises from another participant. How the ORAM nanoparticles are attached to the DNA structures? From Vishwanath Mukherjee.
Okay, how the nanoparticles are attached to the DNA nanostructure?
DNA structures.
Okay. These are thiol-based interaction. Okay, so the DNA, all the single-stranded DNA will have a SH at the end, 5' end, and then it's a thiol and gold nanoparticle interaction. It's very simple. Nothing really fascinating there. Yeah.
Okay, there is another extension. Are they
okay.
chemi-absorbed or phase-absorbed or kind of electrostatic interaction is there? How the
No,
gap between
no.
them is controlled so precisely?
No, actually, okay. So, of course, there is electrostatic interaction will be there because DNA is negatively charged, and so you don't want to really don't want to repel each other, right? So there will be certain salt concentration you have to maintain, like salt aging technique you have to press. So it's basically tuning the electrostatic interaction at the same time chemical interaction. And the question is how the gap between them is controlled so precisely. That's the advantage of using DNA nanostructure, because we know that the distance between two bases is 0.34 nanometer. So if we can extend, if we can put an extension from each bases, then there will be distance between two extension will be of the order of nanometer. So that's how the precision has been achieved. So because the DNA, in short, the DNA structure is so well defined at nanometer length scale that Q1 can use to precisely place those nanoparticles. So this is very controlled interaction. There is very less chance of mistake there.
Okay. Okay, Vishwanath Mukherjee, hope your question has been addressed by Dr. Pal.
Oh, another question is, I think Shreyanki Chandra, in which animal we see four-handed DNA? So yes, even in us, inside us, we can see this four-way junction. These are okay, I really didn't want to go into the biology, because these are intermediate of homologous recombination, that is when genetic material being exchanged between two cells. So that's how where we see these four-handed DNA or four-armed DNA junction.
Here is another question from Saurabh Pradhan. The keys of your cage are the infected RNA. How could you guess RNA?
How could, how could I?
Guess RNA, I think.
Oh, okay. So generally when you, so there are several small RNAs which are called microRNAs, and those microRNA has a specific sequence. Okay, so very unique sequence. They are named also like MIR21 or microRNA number 21. So it is like 20 to 22 nucleotide small RNA. And it has a unique sequence. So we already know that sequence. So then you will use in the lock complementary of that sequence. So that's how you will guide the opening of the lock. It's just playing with the complementarity between two DNA, single-stranded DNA. Again, I'll not say this is really deep into the biology. It's just playing with the two electrostatic interactions. Yeah. Okay, so another interesting question: does DNA nanotechnology gives us a new chance for personalized medicine? Definitely. That this is really another this is really another area where people want to use personalized treatment. So that's where comes the modular DNA nanostructure or multi-compartment DNA nanostructure. So I think I really don't have time to go into the detail, but there is a scope, of course. And can it be also generated from RNA? Probably. Can RNA also be treated to form nanostructure? Yes. RNA and nanotechnology is also really emerging technique, but RNA is difficult to handle because RNA is more prone for damage. DNA is very stable because DNA stays mostly as double strand, RNA stays as single strand. So RNA is more prone to damage. That's why it is more challenging. That field is advancement in this field. RNA nanotechnology is little challenging, but it can be used. Okay, can we use DNA nanoparticles for plant transformation via microprojectile or gene gun methods? Ideally, probably someone needs to explain the question a little bit more, but yes, you can when you treat any cell, so you can use plant cell also. Plant cells also has very interesting DNA structures also. So yeah, you can use plant cells, but we are probably, when it comes to medicine, we want to treat us first, then the plants probably. Yeah.
Okay. Now we have come to the ending of the webinar. I big sincere thanks to Dr. Pal for her outstanding lecture. I also thank our principal sir, Dr. Devashish Bhaumik, and my colleagues for continuous support. I also convey thanks to all the participants for your patience, having some beautiful questions. Now, technical part, please fill up the feedback form, which will be provided to you in this link. Carefully do this. You will get your participation certificate soon. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I add one thing here? So I see lot many questions here. If someone is really interested, please write to me. I'll be happy to answer your questions. Now it's lack of time. I cannot address.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Questions will be
communicate this to the others.
okay. These questions will be compiled and sent to you, madam. Okay.
Definitely, and students can write to me personally also. I'll be very happy to address that question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Devajyoti, continue.
Okay.
Webinar.
So, so anyone who want to be in touch with the speaker, please mail it to our college mail, and we will give you the mail address and PPT of the presentation. Thank you all for being present and participating in this webinar. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.